Okay, so hopefully you've narrowed down which one is your best choice, and if they gave you any tips or tricks, if there's a way of bringing it into Illustrator, turning it into outlines instead of keeping it as a font, and maybe stretching out a letter form or doing something to, like, if I overheard some of you saying, I wish I could have da-da-da, you could do that in Illustrator if you brought it in and turned it into outlines. So before the end of the class, and you're going to have some work time, I'll have you print out just the winning entry. And if there's any tweaking that you want to do to it, or any spacing or kerning or anything that you need to do to really make it perfect, that's when you're going to do it, and then you're going to bring it up here. You're also going to turn in your hand lettering. If it is in a binder or a notebook and you want to keep it in that, I'll make a copy of it. So 3 things will be turned in by the end of class: the paper, the famous person, and your hand lettering. Okay? And you are going to turn in all 3 of your options too. So whichever one you pick as the final, you'll include with your 3 options. Okay? All right. I did get Hamilton set. Our tour is going to be Friday, February 21st, which actually is the date it's on our schedule, at 10 a.m. And it's about, plan on 2 hours. We'll be done by noon. We are going to make a print, so it's a $10 fee because that includes the tour and making the actual print. So that's some examples of what we've done in the past. This was last year's print. Rides up there. I would like you to talk to your classmates and see who maybe is leaving from here or would want to meet here and ride together, or meet somewhere in Sheboygan and ride together, or if you live in Manitowoc, meet there and head up to Two Rivers. We don't have transportation, but if we can't figure it out through your classmates, talk to me and we'll figure something out. But also the afternoon class, which is 9 more people from your group, they're going as well. So anybody in your first year program that you know, check into some ride sharing. Okay? So it's in Two Rivers. We'll be there a few minutes early because we'll start right at 10 o'clock. They have what I think is an awesome gift shop. If you're not totally geeked out by typography at the start of the tour, you will be by the end. And in the last couple of years, they've given us a 10% discount also, so save your shopping until the end unless they tell you about it before we start. Hopefully they do that again. That was awesome. So that's the plan. That's in 3 weeks. All right. All good? Okay, this is a cool timeline website that I found that, there we go. It moves as your mouse moves, which actually is annoying because if you want to stop it, it's really hard to get to stop. But you can kind of make it go faster or slower. But it goes through all of history with different items noted. The Book of Kells shows up here in 800 CE and Chinese movable type. Like I said, it's hard to make it slow down. Slow, go the other way. I wish you could drive this with your arrow keys, but at any rate, if you don't make yourself sick, this is a really cool timeline. Here's the Gutenberg press, the 42-line Bible completed, and then we start getting into the different typefaces. So this is about when we're going to start with our lecture today of these different typefaces. So we have the first Roman type style, Garamond, as we're going through here. Slow down. The first Caslon old style typeface comes in here at 1722. Baskerville typeface, Bodoni. You've heard of those. So this is a cool website if you want to take a peek at that. All right, signage. Have any of you been noticing signs or typography more that were in this class? Start paying attention to things? Are you seeing anything good, bad, or indifferent? I'd like you to share stories when you find really good typography or really bad typography.
I saw that construction.
Did you?
Yeah.
The Comic Sans? I think it's the Wig Brothers or something. Yeah. It just kills me. All right. So let's look at signage. All right. This is pretty much what we're used to seeing now. Serif or sans serif?
Sans.
Sans. There's no feet on it. Clean, easy to read, as long as the words fit. Does anybody drive up Dairyland to get here? because when you hit Manitowoc County, the physical sign is this big, and Manitowoc CO, like, just is smashed in there. The letters are really small to get them to all fit. And they're tall. It's funny because it's a long word. All right. In the olden days, like not too terribly long ago, they were all caps. Anybody remember this? Does this seem not unfamiliar? Okay. So freeway signs were all caps, which in small doses is okay. You can read them, but all caps typically are hard to read. So eventually they went away from this. So here's some examples. These aren't too bad. There's enough space between these two words, and kind of single words are easy enough to read. Way back, the signs were actually black and white. 0.4 would be 4/10 of a mile, so that was a different way of measuring. 2.0 was just 2 miles. If you are doing any kind of design work and you want to replicate road signs, as they really are, go to the font pages and search for that. So there's actually, whatever this is, and the arrows that they use are found in these font sets if you're trying to replicate that. All right, anybody ever been to a country where they couldn't read the language? What's going on here if we had to guess? Anybody have any idea?
Exit. No.
This is definitely like an exit you can get off here. What makes you think hotel? I'm just curious. Something in here? Okay. E, there's a letter that we recognize. I don't know, emergency maybe? I have no clue what that would be, to be honest. What's something that we typically see even on our signs that helps us know when we're nearing Mitchell International? Airplane, yeah. So that's one thing. If this happened to be for an airport, at least if they have the icon of the airplane, that's helpful. When it's a language that you very likely have no clue how to decipher, we really start relying on visual clues. This, I'm sure, should make us think of something. I'm not sure what, but that symbolizes
Target that way.
target. Target shooting over here. Who knows? I don't know. I truly don't know. All right, so here's the whole thing about the capital letters. Dollywood Lane, that looks pretty shoved in there, and the number 8 right before it. It's hard to read. Even Perry Avenue, which is easier to read. That's a short word. It's only 5 letters. But doing it into lowercase, changing from the all caps to a mixture, really helps with legibility. And also, typically when we're in a car, we don't have a lot of time to read signs. So it needs to be something we can pick up on very quickly. I would like you this week, when you are driving around, especially in your towns, look at the signage of your city streets and tell me next week if they're the mixed or if any of them are still all caps. You guys are all in different places, especially if we get into the smaller outlying towns. Why do you think when they said we're switching to upper and lower case letters, every town do this by next year? Do you think that happened by next year? Why? Yeah, money. Think of all the signs that had to be paid for, made, bought, erected. So it was kind of phased in over an amount of time. So I'm curious, anybody in Plymouth? Nobody's in Plymouth? Kind of curious down in their historic district if the signage is still, because sometimes they're brown if it's a historic district. If those are still all caps or kind of more stylized. But I want you to look and see what you find. If anybody finds all caps yet, I would love for you to share that next week. Okay, hard to read. Look at the kerning between the V and the A on this. It's hardly there, and then there's kind of this weird gap here. This icon, whatever this is over here, this little swirl, leave that off and give yourself a little bit more breathing room, but pretty hard to read. And then when signs tip over, they don't do us much good anyway. So, fall down. All right. What not to wear. We're going to look at signage, good and bad. And if you guys find examples of good signs, I'd love for you to snap a picture and bring those in and share, or email them to me so I can share them. And if you find bad type decisions, like the truck, although I'm always afraid to take a picture of it, Typos, anything weird, bring those in too, because they're kind of fun to look at. All right, anything wrong here?
There's two M's.
Oops. Big fat typo. Tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. Over and over and over again. Oops. All right. All right, not necessarily a typo. Just, you know, only enough room for vegetable. So that's all we're going to put in there, but people get the idea. So that's not exactly a typo. Does this sign kind of make you uncomfortable? It's a little, not a little, it's a lot cut off, right and left. And yet we paid for all this signage that's just empty up and below. A little awkward. There's got to be a better way of doing that. All right, there's nothing wrong with this one. It was just funny when Favre left, went to the Jets. So sometimes I think we see this a lot where churches put funny little one-liners up. Who are the two fast foods that are doing this, kind of going back and forth? Have you seen that on social media anywhere?
It's
Wendy's?
and
It's a Burger King.
it's something like that.
Yeah, where they like make jabs at each other back and forth on their signs. All right, presidential candidate posters. Lucky us, we're in another season of that. Typically, they've got red, white, and blue in them, don't they? Every now and then, you'll see one that's not, definitely stands out, and there's a reason for it. I want you to look at the font choices here. I'll try to zoom in a little. So, we have a combination of serif and sans serif. We haven't talked about this a lot, but I think your gut reaction, you kind of know this from when you guys did the exercise last week too. Whenever there's serifs, that's the older version. So it kind of gives a version of established, trustworthy, been around for a long time, know what we're doing. Serifs are newer style, and that's kind of a more modern, maybe more progressive, maybe not the same old that you're used to. So look on here and kind of take a look at who used serifs and who didn't. And does it kind of fit in with what you expected? Also look at this Bush Cheney from 04. It's a little bit italicized. What feeling does that give us when something is italicized? Yeah, moving forward, speed, action, not just static. Once we get this drilled down here after the Democratic convention, which won't be quite a while yet, but even now, looking at their posters, their logos that they're using are very interesting, and the Democratic Party right now has a handful or two handfuls of candidates at the moment. So it's interesting to look at what they chose and why, and what color scheme they've chosen why. All right. This is the literal translation of that sign. So sometimes things don't exactly translate out, but that is the literal translation. Okay, again, with typos. There's actually a picture that I've seen where, you know how stop is printed on the concrete as you're going towards it, and it was also spelled S-O-P-T, or it was misspelled, 4 letters misspelled. What's wrong with this lovely banner? Yeah, kind of missing a... So, is proofreading important? If you are a designer and somebody gives you all the copy in a text format in Word or TXT doc or whatever, and that's what they give you and they say make a banner and you copy and paste it in and you make the banner, is it your fault or their fault? Kind of both, but ultimately you're the one in charge of seeing things like this. Now, if they give you a 1,000-page manuscript, then I would say I have no proofing and editing here. I'm taking your document 100% and just placing it in this document. But in general, you do have to proofread. You can save your client a lot of embarrassment, money, time by fixing things like this, and it builds up a level of trust too. Like, you have a typo in the first line. Oh, thank you for catching that. We're going to do a whole exercise on proofreading because it is that important, and there are proofreading marks that are kind of universal throughout journalism and advertising and design. So we're going to work on that a little bit, and we're going to, if you don't already know this, proofreading your own work is hard. You've already seen it 100 times. You know what it's supposed to say. Your eye skips right over things. So have you ever proofed, and then when the final copy comes out, you're like, oh my God. Yeah, it's happened to all of us. So letting someone else, a fresh set of eyes, look at it, and then also if it's like content, reading each word backwards, like starting at the bottom of the page and reading the word in its entirety makes you focus on just that word, and then you go to the next word and whatever, go backwards, right? And because of that, things aren't in context. So of the whatever, your mind already knows of the, and we skip over that. A lot of times you guys do the word twice, like of, or is, and you don't catch it. So when you read backwards, you catch those things. So you read backwards to check each word, and then you read forward for grammar, actual sentence structure. All right, what's wrong here?
There.
Yep, that's the wrong there. What else?
I think it needs to be a caution.
No. Apostrophe means it's possessive. Employees what? What do they own? Employees' cats must wash their hands. Employees' children must wash their hands. If it's plural, that's not there. So, this is a sign that was printed, drilled into a door, and bolted down. Ouch. Oops. Okay, let's look at some good signage. And again, there's lots of this out there. So if you find stuff that's awesome, please share. Does this look like a good sign? You can have opinions, but it's not bad. I think we can all universally agree on that. What kind of a feeling are they trying to get with their font choices and graphic choices, do you think? What's the vibe of Two Rivers?
Carp Town.
It's a cool place to go. It's what?
Carp Town.
Carp Town.
Don't ask.
Okay, I won't.
A little older.
Yeah. Older because of maybe the type choice, the serifs, and the swirls. Clearly, you're on the lake. They got the seagulls and fishing boat and whatever. Nice signage. All right. Look like a good typography choice. Can we read it quickly? Yep. It's clean. Letter forms are recognizable. It does have serifs, which again is that older, trustworthy, reliable feeling. Okay, now we're going into things that I don't know truly what they are, but we're going to guess. What's the vibe of this place? What are they going for? What feeling or era, or what do you expect it to be like inside? Yell it out.
Fancy.
Fancy.
Old school thing.
Old school. Yep. Really old school, right? The E here is the same E up there, but sometimes in some really old font sets they did this, where it's almost a different letter. It looks like an F, but it's meant to be an E. This N looks like it's so old that it's degraded. Part of it is gone. So it's chiseled, it's three-dimensional, it's got very big serifs, very stylized. We think this is an older, kind of a old school, high-end type of a place. How about this spa? What feelings, what words describe this, do you think? Relaxing? Minimal? Old school? No. Modern, right? Clean, modern. So, sans serif, very clean, color scheme. Quiet. Yeah. All lowercase. Yep. Peaceful, quiet. All right, how about the restaurant upper left? What's the vibe? What do they serve? What are we walking into? Based on typography. Not quiet.
Scary.
You're scared by it, okay. Anybody have any feelings on what kind of food might be in there?
Some more exotic food.
Exotic, that's a good word. Yep.
Tea, coffee,
Teas or coffees? Okay.
Vegetarian?
Vegetarian? Okay. I have like a vibe of maybe like Indian
Like whatever you
food
want.
or something. Yeah. Okay.
I would be interested in going to nuclear.
You would not be. Okay, so based on the signage, you are making decisions, right? And even if we didn't know the language and the word, again, the typography helps us have a feeling or a vibe for it. You're not going to walk into there and probably get a cheeseburger, is my guess, but I could be all wrong. All right, Heritage Woods. This is a subdivision. You can buy your lots. Are these $20,000 lots or $200,000 lots based on signage? 200, higher end. Why? Where'd you come up with that concept? What made you think that? Gold. Yep. What else? A script font. Yep.
The name of it.
The name, yeah, we have to call it something. This of Greenfield is in a serif type that looks established and older. It definitely has that high-end vibe. Okay, so we were able to make some snap judgments just based on type and color, actually. All right, we're going to do a review of chapters 2 and 3 in the book, so we'll just get started on this and see when we get to a natural break point. All right, do you guys want me to send this to your computer screens? Is it easier if you can see it? Okay, if your monitors are on and awake, I will zap it to you. All right, so chapter 2, we're going to talk about the anatomy of type, the physical attributes of type. And we have to be able to use terminology to talk about what we're looking for, because we just don't always want to say things like, you know, that doodad that hangs down, make that more loopy. Well, a loop is a thing, but doodad is not a thing. So, does anybody remember back to, I don't know when, preschool, kindergarten, when you started to learn how to make your alphabet? And you had the lined paper, and it was very specific. I laugh when I watch my kids write their letters because they do it a lot of them the opposite way I do. Like they go up from something or come backwards, opposite of a way that I'm used to doing. And at one point in time, I think we were all taught to do, this is your first stroke, this is your second. This is your first, this is your second. Does that ring true for you guys too? Okay. Cursive. Is that still taught?
Until 3rd grade.
Until 3rd grade.
So mine's terrible.
Right. That was mine, for that matter. It has a lot to do with the fact that we don't handwrite much of anything anymore. You know, everything is, yeah, you just kind of make your signature go. All right, so.
I think the reason they're going away from cursive is they got tired of left-handers smearing the page.
Oh, is that why? Poor lefties. So we definitely learned, and we had some things set up here. These lines and the dotted line in the middle, which is actually has a lot, well, it completely has a lot to do with typography. All right. So let's look at some calligraphy pens. So after they got away from chisels and rocks and cave drawings and all that, they went to the quills, and they would manipulate the tips of those. And then when they actually got to the calligraphy pens, the way that they would sand down or angle these tips had a lot, well, completely to do with how thick your strokes were, how thin they were, and what you could do with that. So you had more than just one pen nib, for sure. A lot of people like these for doing drawings as well. So here's some examples of some things that are hand-drawn on paper and then digitized. And a lot of artists that are good at this like to work this way. They don't start straight on the computer. They like to work by hand, scan it, bring it in to Illustrator, and then start tracing it and digitizing it. Other artists are not artists, graphic designers. There's one that I've watched a series on quite a bit. She actually said that she can't do this. She needs to be in front of the computer. She says, I can't think without the computer. I need the computer to help me start. And that made me feel good because that's how I am. I need to start on the computer and play around, not start on paper. Other people need to start on paper. So whatever your workflow is, that's fine. But a lot of people really do enjoy hand drawing first. All right, anatomy of type. I have a handout for you. It has all of these fun terms on it, and it's two-sided. So instead of calling things doodads, I'm going to attempt to get my real names. All right, so if you look at the sheet I gave you on the grid side, you see some obvious things in the top row like ascenders and descenders, so things that go up, things that go down. On your lined paper like you had in grade school where there was the two hard lines and then the dotted line in the middle, the baseline is the lowest line, all the letters sit on that. The cap line is where your capital letters go to in most cases, and then a little bit above that is an ascender line. In some fonts and styles, the ascenders, the tall parts of letters, go beyond that cap line a little bit, and that actually helps you identify them by their family identification. Okay, there's a bunch of pieces in here that we can see, but these sheets are a little bit better. Just jump ahead into this. So, things that go up are ascenders, like on the D. Things that go down on P and the Y over here are descenders. Shoulders are the rounded parts off to the side. So an N has a shoulder, as you can see right there. Crossbar on the letter E, that's kind of an easy one to remember, or a bar on the letter A. Apex, things like the tip, so the top of an A. Is it pointy? Is it angled? Is it rounded? There's a bunch of different versions of that. Terminal is just the end point of your stroke. The mean line is how tall your lowercase letters are. So is it exactly half? Is it taller than halfway? Or is it shorter than halfway? That's going to help you identify family styles as well. And that is also called the X height of the letter. Is it a tall X height or a small X height or regular? Tails coming off of the Q. G, the lower G can be open or it can be like this, which is a loop. And then any space inside of a letter is called a counter, and it can be open space too. So like the letter C, letter C on here? No. That would be a counter too, that open space inside, even though it's not completely sealed. Ears. Some letter G's have a little doodad sticking off to the right. That's an ear. The angle of stress, you can see it down here in the E. We look for where, if it was a calligraphy pen, where the thickest parts are and then where it gets thin. So if it's a letter O and it starts thin and gets thicker, goes thin and gets thicker, the thinnest points, if you line them up, that's your angle of stress. So it can be straight up and down, or it can start to be angled, and that'll also play into what family different type comes from. So again, looking at this sheet, links are between the letter G when it's a two-story letter G. We have two shapes, the loop down below. Tails can be where, in some cases, the serifs are actually not serifs, they're kind of rounded up, have a little bit of flair to them, or on the Q here. The ear on the G. Legs are straight, or not straight, angled parts that come down, holding up a letter form. Let's see. Counters. That's that negative space inside of letter forms. Arms come straight out, so on the F and the T we have arms. Serifs we know. Crossbars we know. And then on the back there are a bunch of many of the same and a few new terms within here as well. Jump back to this. There's also positive and negative space within type forms. So the positive is the letter form itself. The negative space is all the room around it. And then it doesn't have to be black and white. It can be reversed out. Does anybody see something? The name of this restaurant is Egg and Spoon. That's hard to see way up there. But what makes this logo tongue-in-cheek?
It's like a spoon.
There's a spoon and an egg. So at first glance, it kind of looks like the E from maybe Explorer or eBay or something, but the negative space makes this the egg and the spoon. All right.
You hadn't pointed it out.
Yeah. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Do you guys know that there's an arrow in FedEx? Once you see that, you can't unsee that too. That comes up in a PowerPoint at some point in this class. Okay, I have one more handout for you. So on this worksheet, take the terms on the right and label them on the two words, arc and joggle, or whatever that word is. And identify where they are. These are some of the key terms that you need to be aware of. You can use your worksheets that I handed out, some examples. You can chat with your neighbor to help identify these parts if you'd like. Yes. The bowls they're actually kind of interchangeable. If you call that just a bowl or just a counter, it would be wrong. Yeah, they're very similar. There's a lot of these that are like that, where the terms, there's one or two terms that kind of mean the same thing. Just listen to that. All right, let's look at this example. Where do we find an apex? The top of the A right up here is the apex. Yep. In your book also, there's some really good examples. I'm just going to try to put this on here. Look at all the different versions of apexes that we can have. Come on, get focused a little bit here. There, oh, there, okay. So we have pointed apexes, flat, rounded, oblique, hallowed, there's kind of a dish in that, and then extended where the serifs come off to the side. These pages in chapter 2 in the book are really helpful for identifying different things as well. The bottom, right here, the vertex is the bottom, so flip that over and you got the letter V. We have the same options, pointed, flat, rounded, oblique, hallowed, and extended. Shoulders we've talked about a little bit, but we can have rounded or squared off shoulders like you see in this book as well. Spurs on our letter G, there's a lot of different versions that they can be or where they show up. All right, back to the worksheet. Arm, what'd you guys get for the arm?
Top part of the K.
Yeah, the K, or the K. The arm can be any diagonal or horizontal line where one end is unattached. So this right here can easily be an arm. How about a bar? Where would we find a bar? Yep. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Yeah, right here. Okay, ascenders. How many are shown? How many ascenders on this worksheet? In the arc and joggle. Yeah. So the parts that go up, the L, the H, the K. How about descenders? How many total? Yep. The J and the G. This is also a two-story G with the loop down here. Counters. How many counters do you think there are? There's quite, yeah. So this is definitely a counter. This is definitely a counter. It's all this negative space inside. But it could also be this space within the H and perhaps the space in here. The ones that we specifically recognize are these closed versions or the open ones that are almost sealed up. So like this H down here. How about an ear? How many ears? How many ears on this worksheet? One. That cute little thing hanging off of the G. And where do you see a good example of a shoulder? Yep, this part right here is the shoulder. All right. Good job. All right, what I'm going to have you do next is I want you to typeset the word hand glovery. So the reason we use that word, whoops, gotta go back to the PC. The reason we use the word hand glovery is there are so many examples of these different anatomy parts contained in these letter forms. So I want you to typeset hand glovery 10 times. Write up hand glovery and copy and paste it 10 times. Do it at 18-point type, and then change the font to 10 different fonts. So it's going to look different. So 18-point hand glovery, do it 10 times in different fonts, line by line by line, and look at how different like the letter G is in different fonts. That's going to be one that stands out a lot. Look how the descender on the Y behaves in different fonts. And kind of go for fonts that show you some variety. Not ones that are all the same, like Arial and Helvetica and Caslon or whatever. So really mix it up. During this time, I'm going to give you until 9:30 for sure to do this. You can take your break whenever if you need to go to the bathroom. But at 9:30, we're going to kind of weigh in and see where everybody is with their getting this done. And you are going to print it out with your name on it. And then I want you to kind of circle on the printout in paper. Let's see, do I want to quit? You're about to show it? No. Are you guys free again? Okay. I want you to point out some of the things that are different, like the loop on the G, or the ear on the G, or the way the A's are stacked like this, or an older, a more clean A without this top piece. So handwrite on a few details about this. And again, at least until 9:30 to work on this, maybe longer. And also you can take a break in this time, so probably longer.